beginning to make data visualizations, I think it can really help to think critically about the data visualizations that you're seeing. In addition, oftentimes you find yourself as a member of a team where you need to help to revise and refine a particular data visualization, or maybe you just have a friend who's seeking help in how to make the best data visualization that they can. In all these cases, knowing how to offer a critique in a useful and constructive manner is a skill worth having. And because of this, then, we're going to take a few times where I illustrate how I go about critiquing particular data visualizations using the criteria that we have developed so far. Today, because we're early on, we've only really considered parts of whole, and we've looked at things like pie charts. So why don't we look at a pie chart? We've also made pie charts just in Excel, and so why don't we also sort of just look at a standard Excel pie chart and do some critiquing using the criteria that we have so far. Just to remind us, we essentially have only one criterion for design. And that criterion is, does the design allow us to accomplish the task that we're supposed to be doing? When we think about a pie chart, the task that we're trying to accomplish is comparing parts of a whole. We want to see how an entire thing is decomposed into its various parts. We want to understand which parts are larger than other parts, and we want to use that information to analyze sort of how this whole is constructed or deconstructed. A well-designed pie chart allows us to accomplish comprehension of how a whole thing is broken up into parts easily and quickly. So with that in mind, let's dive in and have a closer look at this particular pie chart. Again, this is a pie chart as might be created by default in Excel without any real attempt to define design ideas or to create a better design. Hopefully, by the end of this course, you'll make something that's much better than this, because though it kind of looks okay at first glance, even when we think about how this design works with our first design criterion, we can see that it fails, and it fails pretty bad. Why is that? Well, I think there's two primary reasons. Again, remember that what we're trying to do is allow us to understand how the whole of something is decomposed into its parts. And we're trying to allow us to do that easily and quickly. This fails on both accounts. The first account, dividing it up. How do we know what belongs to what? Part of the problem here is that we have repeating colors, and that's because Excel, as we saw, when it defaults, it just runs through a standard course of colors. When it gets to the end, it actually just goes back and does it again. And so how do I know which purple this is? Is it doing homework or is it studying? How do I know which of these greens is dancing versus socializing? These oranges, are they riding or jogging or running? I simply don't know. And so it makes it very difficult for me to even know which slice goes with which activity. Another problem with this is that there's simply too many slices. A pie chart should allow me to decide what activities or which parts are bigger than what other parts relatively easily. These 3 slices, maybe these 4 slices, it's sort of hard to tell which are bigger than others. How about this purple, this blue, and this purple? It's difficult to understand which one of these is bigger. And so again, this pie chart is failing to accomplish that very first task that allows us to compare and understand how the parts of a whole are distributed. It also fails on the allowing us to do this easily and quickly. Because even if I could know which purple was which, I'm still looking back and forth between this legend and the pie slice. It's splitting my attention. And so I think something that's not quite as important, but does help in design, would be to place the label that we want in the pie slice that we're talking about, or right next to it. And if we did that, actually, it wouldn't matter whether these were 2 different purple colors, because I would know doing homework goes with doing homework because the label would be right next to it. And so that would actually solve both of our problems if we simply labeled the pie slices directly. And I think in this course we're going to see that direct data labeling works very well and that we should use it more often than we don't. Okay, so that's me thinking through looking at this and how it may or may not work with our criterion. However, that's not quite how I would offer my critique back to someone else. This is just me simply thinking through what am I expecting, what do I know about design, and gathering my thoughts. Now let's think about how I might express that to another person. The reason to offer critique is not just to crush someone's hopes and dreams, but to help them better the thing that they're working on. And so I think that the best critique should tell somebody what they think is working and what they think is not working, as well as to try to express as concretely as possible why it's working or why it's not. And so that's what we should strive for. Part of being concrete might be offering suggestions. And so in this case, what I would say is that I do like the idea of looking at what do I do while I'm streaming music. It might help me understand where is it that I find I need some extra stimulus when I'm doing something, or where I might want to try to get rid of it. And anyway, like a lot of us stream music, and it might just be kind of fun to see what we're looking at doing. On the other hand, even though I find this interesting, it's difficult for me to actually understand what I'm looking at. And the reason it's difficult for me to look at what's happening is because I don't know how to assign each one of these categories to the pies. And so my suggestion would be to take each category label and put it next to the pie slice. And I think that would help in the overall design. Something else I might say that I'd be interested in seeing is something with fewer pie slices. And so maybe rather than having so many different categories, we could have something like studying and doing homework grouped together under schoolwork. Writing might also fit there, depending on what kind of writing this is, as well as reading. If reading is more of a leisure time activity, maybe we could also put that in somewhere else, like socializing and reading together under leisure activities. And by having fewer pie slices, then we could also have an easier time understanding which activities tend to dominate our behaviors. Something else to consider, of course, if you want to have all these slices, might be to make multiple pie charts. One that first shows us things like work, schoolwork, leisure time, and then others that break down each one of those pie slices further so that we can see that our leisure time might be something like cooking, dancing, exercising, reading, socializing, and so on. And so what we do then is we're progressively making more and more finely divided charts, but by doing that, we can see or assign more readily what the various sizes are at each stage of that hierarchy. Anyway, that's something I might say to somebody. And again, what I'm trying to do is express to them what is I like and where I see that things are failing, why I think they're failing, and then potentially offering up solutions. Now, whether or not they take those solutions is totally up to them, but by giving them those ideas, hopefully it also helps them think through what they're trying to accomplish and what might be the best way. And so that's our first example of how to critique something. And this is something we'll practice over and over. And we'll have other videos where we look at different ways to critique as we add more and more design criteria.